making me. What's time at a thing to kill or keep a buy or lose or living? I gotta go faster, keep up the pace, just to stay in the human race. I could go supersonic, the problem's chronic. Tell me, does life exist beyond it? When I need to sate, I just accelerate into oblivion. Into oblivion.
Buenos nachos amigos, and welcome to another fine episode of Record Breakers. I am PD Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me, as always, are none other than Drew.
What's up?
Brett.
Money in the bank.
And Patrick.
Hey, yo.
We are gathered again to talk about music, as we always do. This week, we're talking about something interesting. This week, Patrick, you have the music that we are discussing. What are we discussing today?
I brought out one of my all-time favorite albums that I've been listening to for entirely too long, Bare Naked Ladies. Their sort of breakout in the U.S. album, Stunt, from 1998. Our dear Canadian friends make... I would call it radio rock, pop rock, however you want to say it. It's rock and roll, but it's definitely with a pop tinge to it. And this was sort of the album that made everyone know who they were, because it had a single or two that you may have heard.
Yeah. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, like everyone in this lovely nation, I have seen commercials for romantic comedies throughout the early 2000s. So I was familiar with what I was getting into. This was the album that Bare Naked Ladies did that I actually was like young enough to remember seeing like on shelves. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. I will tell more later.
Andrew, did you have any expectations coming into this album?
Yeah, because I listened to this album a lot. My expectations going into this album was, hey, I liked this when I was younger. Let's see how this shit holds up.
Yes.
That's pretty much what it was. I listened to Stunt a lot. I listened to the Bare Naked Ladies a lot when I was younger, and I haven't listened to them in a while. Probably since I was like 15, 16. So this was more of along the lines of, let's see what's going on with this.
And so Patrick, what would be some of the key themes and elements that you would describe in this album? What you would point out when it comes to this album?
Well, Stunt, again, it was their big breakthrough in the U.S. because of the first single off of it, One Week, which is a fun song. We'll talk about it more later, presumably. But it was the album I remember buying it as a child, back when you had to buy physical CDs because there was no iTunes, and I think this is probably even predating Napster by a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember that year where One Week was everywhere. Like, it was on the radio, it was on MTV and VH1 when they showed music videos. It was everywhere. The album, Bare Naked Ladies they're fun Canadian music. They're a little bit quirky and silly, which I think is lyrically comes out on this album a lot, and sort of the core of it is the two singers, songwriters in the band, Stephen Page and Ed Robertson. Sort of as I think of them, the sort of a lighthearted Canadian Paul and John, where I think of Stephen Page as kind of the John Lennon, the more serious, the more writes the
playing with fire, buddy. Playing with fire.
Not as good.
You're playing with fire. Not at me. I don't give a shit.
I know, because you're not the Beatles fan in the room, and someone is. I'm not comparing. I'm just saying, sort of in the same way that the Beatles were primarily two songwriters, and they wrote fundamentally different songs.
Yeah, George and Ringo. Yeah.
Those
George and Ringo. Yeah.
And like I said, I thought sort of Stephen Page is sort of the John, the more serious of the two, where Ed's the more poppy, writing the feel-good songs, Paul of the two. More recently, Stephen Page left the band, and I'm a Stephen Page fan, so I feel like the band is not dead to me, but no longer of interest because Stephen Page's writing, I think, is the stronger half of it. But they write quirky lyrics. They're fun. I wish music that was popular now sounded more like this, because it is like they're all decent instrumentalists. They can play their instruments. They can play it live. They're kind of known for doing a good live show.
Yeah.
And so much of popular music isn't that anymore.
Yeah. So, Brett, what are the themes and elements that stood out for you? What caught your attention?
Very Canadian. Yes, I will agree. Very Canadian. Not my brand of Canada. They weren't talking about spaceships flying into black holes and ending up in Olympus, but you can't ask for every band from Canada to be Rush.
They did not speak about One Night in Bangkok.
No, well, they did do some. No. That is one thing that they did do. There was some song talking. Instead of singing, you're just talking to a tune. And the only time that's really done right is One Night in Bangkok. I tweeted that out earlier today. It's very strummy. It's like that period of the 90s when they handed you a tambourine and a couple acoustic guitars and told you to go to town. It's kind of like pop. It's of that era.
Considering Stephen Page's arrest record, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
It's
Considering
definitely
the arrest, that makes some sense.
It's definitely of that era, where songs that were catchy enough to make it into the soundtrack of every romantic comedy of the next 10 years.
Yeah. And it pretty much is kind of the genre of this record, even overall. As fun as it is, definitely. Drew, what would be some of the elements that you that stood out for you that caught your attention?
Well, to me, this record and the band in general, like when you listen to the stuff, when you listen to their tunes, they're sort of like one of those bands that you listen to them and you're like, yeah, no, they write some hits. It's catchy. It gets in your head. It's easy to listen to. It's not gonna be offensive really to anybody. It's really kind of just pop rock music. It's really easy just to digest for your average listener. But on top of that, there's songs in there where they show a bit more musical depth and it can actually hold your attention. There's acoustic guitar parts in the background where you can hear the guy actually cares about playing an instrument, like that sort of thing, unlike you get with some pop music. Overall, I think it was really good. As I was saying, this was more of a test of, hey, does this hold up? And to me, it does. It was fun to listen to. It was easy to listen to. Bare Naked Lady is one of those bands that you can always just listen to, bob your head along to, dance a little bit, and just kind of be doing other things while you're listening to it. And that to me is a really, really fun thing.
Yeah. And it's kind of what is definitely present with a lot of the songs, definitely. I guess, Patrick, what would be some of your key songs, some of your favorite songs that you would center in on?
So I want to get it right out of the way just because it was the big hit, and I kind of am genuinely curious what everyone thinks of the song 1 week now, 15 plus years later. Do we all hate it because we heard it too much? Or is it what it is in my mind? It's kind of got that stupid pseudo-rap verses and everything, but to me it's still a fun song. It's what it is. It's the big pop hit on the record, but they get it out of the way early. I'm just curious to what y'all think of it.
Well, I would have to say that it sort of cringes. I cringed a little bit when I first heard it. I heard it mostly radio quality. It's not the worst thing in the world by any stretch of the imagination. It does it has worn a little thin though with age.
Drew, what are your thoughts?
I'll agree with that. I'll tend to agree with that. It's not something that I necessarily cringe at like Brett has, but it has not stood the test of a million playthroughs and every commercial and all the radio and all that. there is a certain novelty to it. There is a certain novelty to almost the self-referential humor in it. When you're referencing Sailor Moon for no reason,
Or Akira
you're gonna make some
Kurosawa.
people laugh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna get people to laugh, and you're gonna get people, especially when it's done quickly. Different people are going to latch on to different things, which I think is really funny. Overall, I listened to it when I was listening back through this. If I were to go back and listen to the song again, or listen to the album again, I'd probably be skipping it every time, to be honest with you. But it's not that it's a bad song, it's that I've heard it a million times, I'm done.
I'm happy that they're making their living. That this is their like residual like money in the bank
Yeah.
for them.
Right.
It's there. They don't have to worry. They have done what musicians need to do to not ever have to want again. Because
Yeah.
that song's gonna get played forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is true.
Petey, what'd you think
It
of
is-
it?
Yeah,
Just curious.
it's a song. You know, it's fun. You know, it's a song. No, but you know, let me go ahead and switch to myself. It's a song that is fun and that is catchy, and you know, it's been played a billion times. I haven't listened to it in forever, and I haven't listened to it a billion times. So, you know, it's one of those things where you can enjoy it for the pure saccharine joy of it all, if you want to, but it's definitely understandable how it can wear thin on you. Like I'm very much a fan of just enjoying pop music for the sake of just enjoying silly, fun pop music. I host an entire podcast about that kind of music from another country, way yonder. So you know me. But
I wouldn't call this pop. I'd call it like it's not alternative rock. It's more of the alternative to rock.
yes,
But it's of that period where like nobody knew what to call it. So
It's what
to me, it's pop
CNN
rock.
calls
And
alternative.
apparently we
that
still
song-
don't.
That
It's
song is kind of its own thing, but
it's
I
what
mean,
CNN would call alternative.
yes,
Uh-huh.
that's a fair assessment.
Yes. But yeah, Patrick, go ahead and tell us what other songs you would key in on.
So right after that, the next song on the album, "It's All Been Done," I think is the stereotypical Bare Naked Ladies song in all the best ways, because it's a little bit rock and roll. It's got the harmonies, and the wall of vocals kind of chorus thing. Fun song lyrically too. I think that to me like is if you were gonna like look back at like what are the song that maybe should have also been a hit but really wasn't, that's the other one for me.
that's the
It
song
was a
that makes me.
semi-hit, but not nearly as big as One Week.
That's the song that makes me think. Oh, Owen Wilson and Liv Tyler.
Yes.
They're
Oh, wow.
roommates, but
It's-
one just got through a bad relationship. The other one's spouse died. You know, it's like,
It's the rom-com song.
yeah,
it's a rom-com
seriously, that's
song.
all I could think of.
Rom-com jam, rom-com rock. I'll go to you, Brett. What would some of the other? Did you latch on to any of the other songs? Did you any of the songs?
No,
catch
I
your
did
attention?
not actually. This was a very hard thing to grasp a hold of. There's that like I listened to this album all day today, all day, because I normally the day before I'll give you a little look behind the curtains, fans out there, all 5 listeners that want to know. I work with my headphones.
So
in
Slaughters
for
and
8
Squiggles, this is
That's
behind
right.
the scenes.
That's right. I'll let you guys know. I listen all day to 2 albums. And this week I didn't have 2 albums that I had to listen to because the other one is imprinted in my brain. So I listened to this for 8 hours and I still couldn't get anything. It was all just sort of this like viscous goo that sort of poured over one track to the next, except for the first 2 tracks because I had heard them a million times. One was the song that sounded like it was a rom-com. The other one reminded me of the era of the Babysitters Club. But yeah, and I will always
Does it
remember
remind you
that.
of Chicken to China? The Chinese chicken?
Perhaps.
Yes. Drew, how about you? Did any tracks catch your attention?
Yes.
All right.
Very much so. It's all been. Now I can't stop laughing. It's all been done is like Swagger said. It's sort of the song that you think about when, like the style of song you think about when you think about the Bare Naked Ladies. It's a little bit about love, or a lot about love. It's about just that sort of feeling. It's the rom-com, as we would put it in this podcast, apparently. And it's just fun. Like, after you hear it a couple of times, you will almost feel the need to woo-hoo-hoo along with it. And I don't know why that is. Like, even if you don't do it audibly, you can kind of, like, mentally you're preparing for the woo-hoo-hoos to come up after, like, the first or second time you've heard the song.
Yeah.
There's a Call and Answer, really, really a cool low-key sort of song. Sort of, it easily mixes in with the rest of the songs, but it's just that sort of low-key filter to it. Who Needs Sleep? I forgot how much I loved that song, and hearing it again was great. For some reason, I love Who Needs Sleep, and I don't know why. And this album also made me realize something. Whether it be Mustard Plug with beer, Real Big Fish with beer and drinking, or these guys with alcohol, I really like songs about booze, which is
and
by the
cocaine.
straight edge kid.
And cocaine, as this podcast is brought up.
The booger.
Well, Steve Page has had some problems with that, so clearly,
Yes.
some problems.
yeah. And I will second your opinions on alcohol. That has, in the years since I bought this album in 1998, that has kind of become one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a blast to play on guitar because it's like 4 chords.
Yeah.
And you just kind of rock out.
Yeah. So let's kind of let's go back around the horn. Those are some of the fantastic tracks. Brett, what would be kind of your final thoughts of the album overall, or your conclusion?
My conclusion of this entire genre of the 90s. It came, it was a thing, we all swam in it, the radio was told to play it to us. It's not the worst thing, it's not nu metal, it's not the worst thing ever. But it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm sure they're all Canadians, so I'm sure I'd get along with them well. I'd buy them all a drink, shake their hands, be like, hey, you guys are made it to the pinnacle of musicianship. You're getting paid even when you're not playing together. You're doing great. But for me, this is not my slice of pie.
Yeah. So, Drew, what would be your conclusions about the album overall?
My conclusions are I have to go back and see what else they've done since I was like 14, because I'm digging it. I'm digging the tunes.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Drew. The stuff before this album is better than the stuff after this album.
I'm the guy that will listen to anything by a band just to dig it. But I will probably also see what they are like without Senior Cocaine on their side. And see what happens along those lines.
Yes.
But it's a really fun album. It's one of those things where it reminds me why this style of music to me is just sort of easy. You can just sort of, almost like Brett said, but in a better light, I guess. In a better way, to me, I can sit there, I can let it wash over me, I can let it be the viscous thing that it is, and still enjoy it, and still have cool bouncy tunes in my head. Mm-hmm. But, it's not heavy. There's nothing there. Almost
Amen,
like
brother.
their song title. It's been done before.
Yes.
It's all been done.
But it's still nice to hear.
Done.
It's still nice to hear the things that have been done before done again, because
Hey, they were wrong.
just
Nobody thought Kesha was going to be around.
Yes.
So it had not all been done.
Yes.
God, are we really talking about Dollar, huh? Really?
$1, huh?
Hey, she dropped the dollar sign.
Yes, Kesha.
Did she really?
Uh-huh.
Did she also drop the tons of drugs, alcohol, and tons of sex? That was the only thing that people listened to her for?
Yes.
In rock and roll music, drug, sex. Well, I wouldn't call that rock and roll.
Drew,
music,
you
yeah.
just told us how much do you like the songs about booze and cocaine.
That's right.
Hey,
Fair
there's
enough,
substance
fair
in
enough.
those
Maybe-
songs.
Maybe I
There's
can
substance and
$1
sadness in
another
those
day.
songs. There's substance and
sluts.
sadness in those songs. Not you gotta appreciate the artistry about those songs.
I'm gonna-
The artistry of would you please ignore that you found me on the floor trying on your camisole.
Yes, exactly. There's a
The
poetry
fact that you
and
know the
artistry.
lyrics scare me.
Yeah.
I told you that's my favorite song.
So Swagger, what would be your conclusions about the album overall?
So, me as the person who's listened to it for way too long, it has aged. And it hasn't aged perfectly. But there's still a ton of good stuff on here if you like pop rock, or whatever we're going to call this, rom-com rock, as Brett so lovingly
The alternative to rock.
the alternative, what it is, whatever you call it, if you like catchy music played on guitars and drums and bass and occasional banjo and keyboards, some organ somewhere snuck in there.
Like a chord monotron or something.
And there was a banjo briefly.
a sine wave.
Yeah,
It's obvious that they care about music.
yeah, they make fun music. It is.
Yeah.
It doesn't take itself too seriously. This isn't, the White Album, which
Yeah.
isn't all that good. It's fun rock music you can sing along in the car to. If that's your thing, because I think there's a time and place for that, like In the Car, which is also a good song, but it's beside the point. It's fun for that. It's a really good album for the weather just starting to warm up and you putting the windows down in your car and cranking up your stereo, which is kind of how I like to listen to this.
Good point. All right, so let's get to the main event of the evening.
The main event. You keep calling it the main event. Like,
Exactly.
our reviews are nothing. You come here for the haikus.
Yes, exactly. That's why I spun it off into its
He
own
did
YouTube video.
separate them out on YouTube.
Yes,
Great.
it's called getting
Best.
these things. They're there to be bait. People come to see, woo, haiku reviews. That's peculiar, and then it's like, oh, let me hear what these full opinions are.
Don't take away the haiku review. It's like the best part of the show.
Exactly. No, it's like I put it. It's like I copied it out into its own separate bait.
No, he's taking the show away from the haiku reviews, is what he's
Yes.
doing.
Exactly.
This
all-
week in music haikus.
Yes. All right, so let's get started with the haiku reviews. All right, I'm wondering who I'm going to start with. I'm going to start with Drew. For the third week in a row.
A pop rock opus from some great Canadians. That dirty cocaine.
Just remember, she don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie. Oh wait, that's a different artist.
Whoa. Cocaine.
Brett.
Strum heavy 90s. Natural home is in your early aughts rom-com.
Nice. Nice. All right, and of course, now I have my haiku review. Album You Know For. That one big hit also has other fun songs too. And of course, the last man, the last word goes to the provider, Patrick. What is your haiku?
Quirky, fun rock songs. It's still good 15 years on. Bring back Stephen Page.
Nice. All right, so if y'all want to follow along as I switch manically, if y'all want to follow along every week, go ahead and check this album out on our playlist. We're gonna have them on, of course, on Spotify. We have them on Beats Music now. For the last bit of their, Death Rows, we still have them on Mog as well. Let us know where else you want us to maintain playlists. We'll do that. Of course, on that playlist, on those playlists will be the next album we're going to talk about, and that is going to be provided by none other than Brett. What do we got?
Well, I'm sticking along the same lines as this album. It's going to be this chippy band from their 80s album. It's a band called Iron Maiden, and their album Power Slave.
Mm-hmm. Some peppy songs.
I've heard of
some good peppy.
Some real toe
feel-good
tappers, some real
yeah.
snappy songs on there.
You can dance to them. Of course, those will be on the playlist, as I told you. You can find us all over the internet.
How can people get a hold of us? So
Yes.
we got an email address, do we not?
Yes, Record Breakers.
I'm jonesing for some conversation with the fans. I will personally read, and if need be, hand type and send postage stamped letters out if I have more than Slaughters and Squiggles who want to talk to me.
Yes. recordbreakerspodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the show at 4recordbreakers. You can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at The Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbard, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at XDruciferX. I am at PD Rave. The show, like I said, is at 4 Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com, Rebelli.net, Skype, not Skype. I'm on Skype. iTunes, Stitcher, various other podcast catchers and collators and collectors. Wherever you want to put an RSS feed, go ahead and drop it in there. But until next time, hasta los huevos.
I got a story about raccoons.
Thanks, Max Scoville.